an epic journey we've been on, Lauren. It's been crazy. This is the last content that we have to teach you, the last model or concept we have to teach you in this program. After this, of course, we've got a video where we'll recap the whole course, and we might even have an extra virtues snapshot or two. But this is the last time we get to teach you something that will help you on this journey of self-improvement, of emotional health growth.
It's been great, Josh.
Yeah.
Been lots of great content here.
Absolutely.
And it's going to take a while, as we've mentioned earlier on, to really integrate all of this. We've covered so much territory, haven't we, really, So, and we mentioned this right at the beginning, didn't we, about making sure that you just take what you can now. Remember when Josh threw all those objects at me and I'm like, I can't even catch them all. That's the way you're probably feeling right now.
Yeah.
Just catch a couple of these concepts and use them now, work on that. And then in a few months' time, go back through it again and pick a few more up and apply those later on as well. So don't get overwhelmed by it. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
Anyway, Josh, we've got something today to talk about.
Yeah, we do. I want to zoom out a little bit. We've been focused in some of the micro skills it takes to grow. We need to overcome challenges. We need to thin out the gap that separates us from who we are today, from who we could be tomorrow. We need to look at that fear gap and how to jump those gaps safely in a way that's going to help us grow. We need to look at love and how important love is in our relationships. We need a tool for honoring people, particularly in our families and in our marriages. So, we've needed to walk through all of this content. We need to understand people's core needs, particularly our own core needs, so that we are proactively and positively meeting our own core needs instead of negatively meeting them reactively when we're starting to feel a bit gross and a bit down. So everything we've learnt up until now, they've been integral, important, vital components, micro components to growth. And when we put them all together, we start to see some growth on the macro level.
That's right. But it's important, isn't it, to put the microscope in and really look at all of that. But let's zoom out now, Josh.
Let's zoom right out a bit and have a look at the macro big picture. What is this big picture growth journey that we're going on? What does it look like? Where are we? And what's the next step? I call it our stages of growth, because this really is our growth journey moved into 5 stages. So let's walk through those stages now, and I'll do my best to, show you where certain models fit into this big picture model. So let's start with the child mind. And before I kind of go too much into the first stage, I want to give us a little bit of a framework. And each stage, each mind, has an intellectual component and an actionable component. So the part of us that our identity lies in, the intellectual, and the part of us that our behavior lies in, the practical
aspect,
the actionable. Yeah. And so what happens is our intellectual, or our I am, so this is who we are or what we are, okay, becomes, as we grow, becomes our I have. So as we move up these stages, who we once were is now simply something we have as we transcend who we used to be. And I know that might sound a little airy-fairy or philosophical right now. It'll make sense in a moment. So let's start with the first mind, the first stage, the child mind. So when we're born, we are our impulses, aren't we?
We certainly are. We get hungry.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we get hungry.
We are hunger. When we're hungry, we are hungry, and we will act accordingly.
And when we are tired, and we will act accordingly.
Absolutely. When we feel when we feel pain, maybe our stomach grumbling from the hunger.
That's right, or our teeth coming through.
When we're teething. We are hunger. We are nothing else. We are hunger, and we will act accordingly. And so this is a really, really important part to understand, because as we move up, our I am becomes our I have. We start having nothing. We are only our impulses. And you'll see that in a baby when they're first born. For the first 12 months or so, you'll certainly see that. They are their bowel movements, their sleeping patterns, their hunger.
That's right.
That's all they are. So as we move from the child mind, though, we move up to the adolescent mind, the second stage of our growth journey, or the second stage of our development. This is where we no longer are our impulses. We now have impulses. So our I am becomes our I have as we transcend. So we've transcended being our impulses. We now have impulses, and now we are our feelings. It's really interesting. So if we use the quadrants of self model, the first mind, the child mind, when I am my impulses, is my body. I am my body. That's the only quadrant that matters, is my body. And so if my body's in pain, or my body's hungry, or I'm teething, it's all in my body. I am that, and I will act accordingly.
Whereas when we get to the adolescent years, they're like teenagers, it's more about our soul,
Yes.
our feelings, we're dictated by how we feel. Like, I feel angry. And so all of a sudden we become angry. We act that out. That becomes the
we act
actionable.
accordingly, or I am aroused, and so I will act accordingly. And so this is the adolescent mind. It's like I am my feelings and desires. Nothing else matters. Of course, I have impulses. I have hunger, but I'm a little more aware that I'm not my hunger.
Sometimes we revert back, don't we?
Oh, without a doubt.
We throw the toys out of the cot, back to the child again.
Right,
But that's right, though. Impulses, and then we have our feelings, and we act on those. We see that. If you've got teenagers, you know what we're talking about. Or if you are a teenager, maybe you'll understand yourself a little better here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So obviously we want to grow to the third stage, and that is our socialized mind. This is where I have my feelings, my desires, and my impulses. I'm a little more self-aware now. I know that I'm not my feelings. I know that I have them. And so I am something different as I transcend the adolescent mind and I become the socialized mind. I am my self-concept, okay? This is the self-concept model. I am what I think other people think about me. I'm sure, Lauren, you can remember a time when you were your disability. You were what other people thought about you.
You become so self-conscious about that, as a blind person. You're like, oh, what are they thinking of me? What are they saying about me? What are they... And not only that, it's like, well, heck, I'm blind, so I won't be able to do that, or I'm blind, so what's the future hold for me? And there's all these presuppositions, isn't there, that, that's the outcome already determined.
Absolutely. So, and this is where we're at now at the end of the course, or as we near the end of the course. We're at this place where we understand what a self-concept is. We understand that it's fear holding us inside our self-concept and really preventing us from reaching our potential. We know what we have to do to close that fear gap and reach our potential, but if we really want to break out, what's the next step look like? And that's where this macro big picture model comes into play, because the reality is, if you can have something, you are not that thing. And that's a really important notion to understand right here. If you can have a self-concept, you are not your self-concept. You can't be. Not if you can have it. You just haven't transcended where you are right now yet. You haven't moved to the next stage of development. So let's have a look. What happens when we stop being our self-concept? Lauren, I'm sure you can remember a time, maybe walking down a shopping centre with a guide dog or with a cane. Everyone around you is looking at you and they're limiting your potential. Oh, he's only got 16 squares. He's blind. He's just a disabled person. I bet he is on a disability pension chewing up my taxes.
Yeah, living at home on his own with his guide dog.
And that couldn't be further from the truth. When was the last time you received a pension from the taxes we pay?
That's it. I'm out there living the dream. Right, I've got a job, got a house, got a family, got kids. Got all of that happening. Got a couple of businesses running.
Absolutely.
professional musician, recording artist, 4,000 keynote addresses to over 1 million people.
There you go.
I think I've jumped out of that box, I think.
And this is what it looks like for someone to really move outside of their self-concept and start walking around their potential free from fear, free from their fear gap. This is what it looks like. We transcend what we think other people think about us. We transcend what other people think about us, period. We transcend that and we start walking our own path. Well, this is the 4th stage of development in action. It's actually quite remarkable to see. And that is our self-authoring mind. This is when we have a self-concept. Lauren, I'm sure you think other people think things about you, but you don't let that define you anymore.
I don't worry about that so much anymore. You get past, I guess, the self-conscious part of our living, and you become more aware of your own self-worth.
Absolutely.
And that's a great place to be. There's a great sense of peace and fulfillment and satisfaction in that.
Well, you can't do that without closing your gaps. You can't do that without reversing the direction of your spiral. You can't do that without proactively meeting your own core needs and having an understanding of your human needs. And so there's all this stuff that is in play at a micro level as Lauren pushes out past his self-concept and starts roaming free in his potential. But that doesn't mean that we can't do it or that it can't be done. That simply means that we're going to share those strategies and tools with you so you can be on that journey. But this is about understanding, well, if I do stick with this journey, what's it going to look like? Well, it's going to look like that you start having a self-concept, feelings, desires, and impulses as you transcend your self-concept. Stop being... stop identifying as what other people think about you and what you think other people think about you, and start being a self-authoring mind or a self-authoring identity. And this is really important, where we get to actually author our own narrative. We are the creators of our own life, of our own world. We get to write our own story.
Right there. I wonder whether that's why some people go through this, what we call the midlife crisis.
Yeah.
We live our life, you grow up, and you have all of these expectations when you're a teenager, when you're a young adult, and and all these other pressures on you, and you're trying to meet the expectations of those around you, whether they're real or not real. And you get to this point where you find, well, hang on a second, what am I doing all this for anyway? And we reach this crisis point where we wonder, well, ask yourself, well, what's my dream? Who am I? What's my self-identity? What's my sense of self-worth and my dream in life? And once we identify that, we can help us to transition into this 4th phase of our being.
So the self-authoring identity. This is, a really sweet spot to be in terms of being able to be in control of your own story and not being controlled or limited by external factors, other people's, concept of you and your self-concept. All of that fades away. I'm sure, Lauren, there are still people even to this day that look at you and have opinions of you, but you will not let that dictate who you're going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow you will be renowned motivational speaker and remedial therapist, Lauren Nicholson, regardless of the disability you were born with.
Well, it's interesting that, isn't it? Because when I look back over my life now, and it's a transition that happened over a few years, where I don't look at myself as someone with a disability.
Yeah.
In fact, it's funny now, because I think even a lot of the people that know me, and yourself included, I'm sure, they often say, oh, sorry, Lauren, I forgot you don't even see.
Yeah.
They don't even realise it, because they have moved beyond that perception. Absolutely. As well. And and it's not that you wake up in the morning and think, right, what amazing thing can I do to prove to the rest of the world?
No, but it is about shifting our focus, though. I mean, if you think about riding the horse will go wherever you...
Where you lead it, where you point it.
Where you point its head. And whatever the horse focuses on is where the horse will will be directed. And so in the same way, we need to be very aware of what we're focused on. If I'm focused on what everyone's gossiping about me, I'm going to become what everyone's gossiping about me.
Oh, exactly.
So we need to stay focused on our potential. Past the fear. We don't even see the fear. We look beyond the fear. We look beyond our circumstance. We look beyond what life is throwing us. In the self-talk diagram, life happens. We look beyond that and we see our potential. We focus on our potential. That's what it takes. Now, not our misbeliefs, not the things that we think are in our potential that aren't, but absolutely on our potential. That's what we need to focus on. And as we do that, and as we use the strategies we've shared in this course, you can transcend being a socialized mind in your stage of development, transcend being your self-concept, and start having a self-concept, but being your self-authoring identity. And that's a really great place to be in. But of course, what have I been saying? If you can have it, you're not it. So can you have a self-authoring identity?
Well, it's a conundrum.
You can have a self-authoring identity, which means you are not your self-authoring identity, which leads us to the fifth and final stage of our enlightenment journey, our spiritual journey of character growth and our values level. This is really where our virtues come into play. If our self-authoring identity is about our neocortex getting more involved, our amygdala not being involved anymore, and we really get to be creative and come up with who we're going to be, then the fifth stage is about our character simply being. And it's called I Simply Am. We have a self-authoring identity. So we have our beliefs, our mind. We have our feelings and desires. So we have our feelings. We have our self-concept, what we think other people think about us. And we have our impulses, our body. But we are our character. We are our values. We are our virtues. We're not our vices. We're not our mistakes. We're not our self-talk. We're not our feelings.
That's right. We're not our impulses.
No.
We're not that at all.
We are our values. We simply am. We are our character. And that's okay. And I'm working on authoring my own identity. But even the identity that I author is not me. What's sitting behind the identity that I author, which is free, that identity is free from what other people think about me. It's free from my mistakes and my negative self-talk. It's free from my fears. It's free from my unmet needs, which were causing havoc. It's free from all of that. I've transcended that. Now I'm authoring my own identity, but I am not that identity. I am the character values that are in operation in my marriage, in my family with my children. Those closest to me know my character, and those external of those closest to me are getting my self-authoring identity. I'm not dictated by what other people think about me. I'm simply projecting my self-authored identity out of my character values. This is the highest stage of development, and obviously where we are all wanting to be in the months and years to come. But this is not a journey that happens in a matter of weeks. You don't watch an online course like this and suddenly move to
this
the
miraculous
highest
place.
That's not how this works. If you were to kind of come up with a term, an amount of years you think your journey took, Lauren, to get to a place where you're freely roaming your potential, how long do you think that would have taken you?
Well, it could take weeks, months, years.
How long did it take you? Just give us a rough estimate. 10 years?
I'd say 15 to 20 years.
There you go. And
I'd say that's how long it takes.
right, and I'm on a similar journey. I've been walking this path for about 20 years now, and still can see growth. I've been more intentionally working on it the last 6 years, than I have been the 14 that preceded it. But my journey of growth really did start when I was 17, 20 years ago. And now I'm really starting to see some great fruit. So, this is not a short journey, and I don't think your journey started when you enrolled in this course either. I think you need to give yourself some credit for all the experience and change you've been on a journey in already before you hit enroll in this course. But certainly this course will give you the tools to help you see some traction.
I mentioned right at the beginning of this whole series, Josh, and probably have alluded to it again a couple of times throughout, adversity doesn't build character, adversity reveals character. This concept of I am already exists. It's just unrevealed or uncovered yet.
Yep.
And interestingly, those other 4 steps are not necessarily worse than, they are an essential, an integral part
Absolutely.
of the whole journey. You cannot be I am without being the adolescent or the juvenile or the social or you will not. It's those experiences that uncover the I am.
Absolutely.
And so we will find ourselves transitioning and floating between elements of this. I still have impulses, I still have feelings, don't I? I still have those, but because of my self-authoring place that I sit, probably more now, I can make sure that I'm allowing as much of this in and out as that's appropriate, don't I?
Well, you can see people that maybe live in the socialized mind. They are their self-concept. But every now and then you can see their feelings take over. And they become emotionally unhealthy and suddenly they are their anger. Or maybe they become even more unhealthy. They become their impulses. And so have you ever had someone who has had a really bad headache? And of course, immediately they become this grizzly bear stuck in a bear trap where they're, trying to kill the people that are trying to give them aid. A bear stuck in a trap. And so, that's a classic case of someone regressing a little bit within their development because of an external factor. Well, we want to get to a place within our emotional health where that's not happening. Our body is not in control of our decision making, of our actions, of our behavior. Neither is our beliefs, political, religious, or even just the family mottos we grew up with the beliefs that are inside
cultures
us.
Cultures of family and
that's
country.
That's right,
and,
absolutely. Our feelings are absolutely not in control of our choices, but the only thing controlling our choices, it's not even our self-authoring identity, but it's our character values. That's where we want to get to. That's emotional health. How we get there? Well, it's the models we've been teaching you. It's meeting your own needs in a proactive and positive way. Learning how to honor yourself first and foremost, and those people around you, seeing their potential, looking deeper, not just seeing what's on the surface. It's understanding your self-concept and thinning out your fear gap as you expand and moving out into your potential. How do we do that? Well, we reverse the direction of our spiral through positive self-talk. So all of these models and concepts work together to help us transcend the stage of development we are currently in and reach new heights of fulfillment, of self-improvement, and of personal growth and emotional health.
Josh, I think we've given them a whole heap of great things, haven't we?
We have.
And, by now, look, you've been doing this program now, hopefully for about 3 to 4 weeks. You're probably in your last week now of the program. You've written a lot of great information down. You've set goals. You've identified needs. You've identified some aspirations, haven't we?
We have. And so to finish, we'd really like you to go through and write some notes down about maybe how much time do you spend in an average week in each of these stages. Because, the reality is we do regress sometimes to the child mind. We do regress sometimes to the adolescent mind and become all about our feelings and treat people according to how we feel. It totally happens. It's very, very normal. Try and really think about how much time, maybe as a percentage,
Yeah, percentages are good.
how much of your week do you spend in each mind, and really start to get a grip on where you live predominantly. And you'll probably find you spend most of your time in the socialized mind. That's pretty normal. But then start to think, so that's a good so what, okay? I've just given you the what, I've taught you the model. The so what is to analyze your life, and you're about to do that. What's the now what? Well, the now what is, what can I do starting right now that's going to help me transcend my current stage of growth and help me move up into that self-authoring identity, maybe even beyond that? What can I start to do differently? And in the next video, we'll kind of summarize the entire program, and we're going to look at all of these now what's you've been doing throughout the course are kind of almost little mini action strategies or mini goals you've been setting along the way. Well, we're going to have a look at all of those and maybe pick the first couple. We might even share them in the online community and start to ask other people for their input. It's going to be a really good wrap-up session. We'll see you in the next video.
Get you on the other side. Thank you.